welcome to this week's practice, and we're still with the elemental series and we're working with the element of fire this week. So as you can imagine, there'll be some opportunities for heat building, maybe holding things for slightly longer, but again there's always the option for taking rest when you need to. So before we start, I will say the window's open, so you might hear some outside noises, might hear some nice birds singing, but you also might hear the farm, so, and maybe the odd siren. So that's that. Hopefully you just hear the nice music and me. So we're going to begin in a seated position. So sit in any way that's comfortable for you, it doesn't matter how. And just take the moment to come into your own space. You might close the eyes or make the gaze soft. And if it's in your practice to do the Ujjayi breath, then you could do that, because it's a heat building breath, making that whispering sound in the back of the throat. But if it's not in your practice, it's not necessary, you don't have to do it. The Ujjayi breath builds heat and can help to lower blood pressure. And either keeping the eyes closed or letting them open, we're just going to start with some body rolls, so there's nothing really to see. We've done them numerous times before. Taking the weight over one knee, the other knee, then round the back. And then just reversing your direction. Coming back centre. Let's just visit the shoulders for a moment. So starting off, just taking the right shoulder up, back and down, and then repeating. And if it feels good, you might want to include the whole arm in the movement. Take that back the opposite way. And then coming back to stillness, and then start with the left shoulder, up, back and down. And again, if it feels good, bring the whole arm into the movement. Reversing direction. And then releasing off. Coming around to a 4-point kneeling. So lining up the wrists under the shoulders, the knees under the hips. And first of all, just start to take the weight forwards and back, on and off the wrists, getting them used to load bearing. So these movements can be quite small, or you could take the bottom quite far back to the heels and the body weight quite far over the wrists. Either staying with the backwards and forwards movement, or perhaps start taking it into a circular movement. So So you're visiting the back, side, front, and then side of the wrist again. Reversing if you're circling. And then completing any movement you're doing, coming back to centre. I'm going to take some regular cat-cow stretches. So dipping the belly, taking the gaze forwards, and then rounding, gazing towards the belly button. Incorporating the whole back into this movement. Back to stillness. So from your 4-point kneeling, take the right leg back and just tuck the toes under, push the heel down towards the floor. So you might feel a stretch in the back of the leg. We're going to start to build a little bit of strength here. So pushing that foot into the floor, maybe the left knee lifts just off the floor and hovers. Continuing to breathe, just holding a few more breaths. And then just dropping back down. Soften a moment. And then just turning that left foot out behind for balance. Turn the right foot flat. And then coming upright into your gate pose. You're probably facing sideways on your mat now. Take the right hand down the right leg, reach the left arm up, and then side bending over. Moving back through centre, planting that left hand, taking right arm up, maybe all the way over. And then option here. You might lift the left knee up again and just tuck that foot behind the right, really pushing the hips up towards the ceiling. And then drop that left knee back down again, and then instead taking the right arm up to the ceiling, just picking the right leg up instead of the left, either staying here, or you might want to bend into the right knee and catch hold of the ankle, and then maybe pushing the hand into the ankle. Finding a shoulder opener here, maybe it's a quad stretch. Or maybe really pulling the heel in towards the bottom, really coming into those front of thigh muscles. Releasing back out, lowering down, turning back down, and then coming back to that 4-point kneeling position. So repeating on the other side. Take that left leg back, tuck the toes under, and just pushing the heel in towards the floor. And then just floating that right knee off of the floor. Dropping right knee back down towards the floor, turning left foot parallel with the back of the mat, take the right foot out to the side, and coming up into our gate pose for the other side. So reaching the right arm up this time, and then side bending over towards the left. You might notice that one side of the body has more tightness in it than the other. And then coming back down, planting right hand, reaching left arm up, maybe over if you've got the space. And then you've also got the option to lift that right knee up, tucking it behind the left, coming into your full side plank, pushing those hips up towards the ceiling. Drop the right knee back down, take left arm up towards the ceiling, and then picking left leg up. Option, stay here, or you can bend the knee, taking that ankle again, trying to keep the hips parallel as you push the foot into the hand. Maybe even bringing that heel even closer. And releasing back out, turning back down towards the floor. So back into our 4-point kneeling. And just walk the hands out in front, keeping the hips and knees in line, finding a melting heart pose. So the forehead might come down to touch the earth here. Coming back up, and then just bringing the body weight forwards, dropping down, finding a Sphinx pose. Really opening through the chest, shoulders away from ears. From your Sphinx pose, tucking the toes under, and then lifting the body up. We're going to come into a forearm plank. So you can either come up leaving the knees down, or you can pick the knees up as well and be in full forearm plank. Couple more breaths in your forearm plank. And then from here, just start to walk the feet in, a little bit by little, until you find yourself in a dolphin pose. And either lifting one elbow at a time, or 2 elbows together, finding that downward facing dog. Continuing to walk the feet in until you're in a forward fold, keeping the feet hip distance initially. Take a ragdoll fold, you might hold opposite elbows. Just let the head dangle. You might nod and shake a few times. Keep the knees soft here. Really slowly start to bend the knees and roll up the spine. We're going to come towards standing. We're going to take it nice and slow. And as we come up to full standing, just bring the big toes to touch towards the top of the mat. I'm going to move through some sun salutes. So doing as few or as many feels good for you. Beginning in our mountain pose, big toes touching, feet grounding into the earth, tucking the tailbone in, open chest. You might open the palms facing them forwards. Taking a breath in, and a breath out. And then breathe in, taking the arms up, touching palms, you might look up. Breathe out, folding down towards the earth. So coming into a flat back, so lifting the chest, either fingertips touch, You might take the hands onto the shins, folding back down. Step back with one leg and then the other, finding that high plank position. If you need to drop the knees down here, go ahead. If not, you could come down through full plank. We're going to lower all the way to the floor for the first one. And then when we get down, keep the hands under the shoulders. We're going to do 3 baby cobras, either with the hands down or lifting them. So first baby cobra, lifting up, lowering down. Second, lifting, lowering. Third, lifting, lowering, tucking the toes, pushing back to that downward facing dog. Staying here for about 3 breaths. Looking to the space between the hands, either just walking up or stepping up with one foot and then the other. Breathe in, lifting the chest, breathing out to fold. Breathe in, coming up, taking the arms up, touching the palms together, breathing out. Again, and this time a little faster. So breathe in, reaching the arms up, breathing out to fold. Lifting up halfway, flat back. And then take the feet back to that plank. This time you might lower down and hover. And this time could move into a higher cobra, maybe an upward facing dog, where the only points of contact are the hands and the tops of the feet. Shine the chest forward, whatever you're doing. And then roll over the toes. Find that downward facing dog. And again, around 3 breaths here. Coming onto the toes, bending the knees, looking to the top of the mat. You could walk, step, or float to the space between the hands. Breathe in, finding that flat back, folding down. Breathe in, coming up, taking the arms up, breathing out. Last one. Here we go. Breathe in, taking arms up, breathing out, folding down. Breathe in, lifting the chest, making a flat back, stepping or floating back, finding your plank, lowering down, choosing a back bend, and then downward facing dog. Onto the toes, bending the knees, finding your way to the top of the mat, lifting the chest, folding down. Breathe in, coming up, taking the arms up, breathing out. Back in towards our mountain pose. Bending the knees, sweep the arms through, finding chair pose. So you could lift the arms up here, you could have the palms separated, or you could have them together. If this is all too much, you might just have the hands at heart center in a prayer. Making sure you can see your toes. You might even lift the toes. And then breathing out, folding down towards the floor. Breathe in, lifting the chest. Planting the hands, taking the feet back, step or jump. Lowering down. Lifting the chest. Downward facing dog. From here, step the right leg to the space between the hands, turn the back foot towards the diagonal, bending into the knee, finding warrior one, reaching arms up. And then taking the hands down, framing the front foot, take a step back to your plank, lowering down, lifting the chest, rolling over the toes, stepping forward with the left foot, Turning the right foot in, coming up, finding that warrior one on the other side. Lowering back down, stepping back into that plank, coming down, upward facing dog or cobra, downward facing dog. Might be noticing some heat building now in the body. Coming onto the toes, bending the knees. Coming up to the space between the hands, lifting the chest. Breathing out to fold. Breathing in, coming up, taking the arms up. Sink the hips, drop back into that chair pose. We're going to hold this now. So lifting the toes, making sure the weight's not in them. Choosing a hand position for you that works best. Couple more breaths. Maybe you can sink a bit deeper. Come down to a half squat. And slowly coming back upright, bringing hands towards the centre of chest. We're going to pick the left leg up and step it back. We're going to find that warrior one. So turning that foot in parallel, bending deeply into the right knee, turning the hips forwards and square. And then reaching the arms up or keeping them towards a prayer at the chest. And then turning the arms out to the side. We're going to find warrior two. So you might want to spin that foot parallel with the back of the mat. Gazing towards the right fingertips. And then wrapping left arm around the back, taking right arm up, reversing your warrior, deeply bending into that front knee still. Coming back through centre, interlinking the fingers behind the back. Take a breath in, lifting the chest, and then diving down. So you might stop at the knee, at this thigh, or you might come past the thigh, aiming the crown of the head towards the floor, and the arms might lift off of the back. And then slowly finding that warrior two again. And then taking the hands towards that prayer at the centre of the chest, just coming on towards the ball of the back foot, so you're in a high lunge here. And you might need to step in a bit, make sure there's enough space in front of you. Just start to float that left leg up, and we're going to find a warrior three variation. So bringing that left leg up parallel, hips squared down towards the floor. Choose an arm position that works for you. You can take the arms out in front. I'm going to take them out behind because I've got the space for that. You might prefer to take them out to the side. We'll keep them at a prayer at the chest. Take the right hand down towards the floor, resting the fingers down or just hovering, turning that left hip on top of the right hip so they're stacked, and then maybe reach the left arm up to the ceiling, finding our half moon here. In our Ardha Chandrasana. You can either stay with your half moon. If you want to add on, you can bend into that knee and see if you can take hold of the ankle. So you're holding onto your left ankle, and then maybe you can really stretch, massive stretch into the right leg. You can look down down towards the floor here. And then releasing out, take the left hand down towards the floor. Stepping back, we're going to find our plank. Always dropping to the knees, taking a child pose wherever you need to, or moving for a flow, lowering down, choosing a back bend. Downward facing dog. And repeating that sequence on the other side now. So we're going to make the way towards the top of the mat in your preferred manner, stepping or jumping. Breathe in, making a flat back. Breathe out to fold. Breathe in, coming up, taking the arms up. Breathing out. So I'm going to step back with the right leg this time. Nice big stance. Starting off with that foot diagonal, deep bend into the left knee, hips facing forwards, taking the arms up if it's in your practice today, maybe even looking up. Opening the arms out, maybe turning that foot parallel with the back of the mat to our warrior two. And then from here, wrapping that right hand around the back, reversing our warrior, keeping that left knee deeply bent. Coming back centre, interlink the hands at the back again, but do it the more unusual way, with the other thumb on the top. Take a breath in, lifting the chest, and then we're going to dive forward into our humble warrior. Slowly coming back up. Take the hands to a prayer at the chest, turning onto the ball of that right foot, making sure you've got the space in front of you, so moving into that warrior three. So if you need to step in a ways, and then just coming up, finding your balance, having that right leg straight behind you, having the hips parallel facing down, and then choosing an arm position that works for you. Here, taking the left hand down towards the floor, finding our half moon on the other side, so stacking the hips, right arm up towards the ceiling. And then you've got the option of staying here or bending into that knee, grabbing the ankle and taking the other variation. So you might look down to the floor if you're in this one. And then from here we're going to find our vinyasa. So stepping back, finding that plank, moving for a flow. Downward dog or child pose. I'm going to take about 5 breaths here. So you definitely have time to take a child pose if you need one at this point. And then if you're in your child pose, we'll all meet back in a downward dog. Going to make our way to the top of the mat, so choose your preferred manner. And then breathe in, lifting the chest, making a flat back. Folding down. slowly coming up, taking the arms up, touching palms together, breathing out. So from here we're going to need a little bit of space in front and behind. So we're going to take some balances. So grounding into the left foot, bringing up the right knee in front. You might hold around the back of the thigh or the shin. You might take the left hand to the left hip. You could hold on to the right big toe and start working towards straightening the leg out. I'm going to find an eagle bind from here, so releasing the right foot, take the right leg over the left, crossing at the thigh, wrapping around once or twice. Taking the arms out in front, taking right arm under the left, binding once, backs of hands together, or twice, palms together. Sinking down and reaching up. Releasing your eagle arms, taking them up to the ceiling. Releasing that right knee, maybe you could bring it back into the chest. And then maybe that right leg will straighten. And then lowering back down, lowering the arms down. So repeating that on the left. So bringing left knee into the chest. Keeping the back nice and straight here. And taking right hand to the hip, either carry on holding the knee or hooking the big toe and straightening the leg. You might be here, the leg doesn't have to fully straighten out. Releasing the left toe, crossing the thighs over, wrapping that leg around maybe once or twice. And this time the left arm goes under the right, finding your arm bind, lifting up and lowering down. Releasing your arms, taking the arms up to the ceiling, releasing the legs, bring that left knee into the chest. Maybe straightening the leg. And then lowering down, releasing out. Just taking a moment in mountain pose. You might even want to close the eyes for a breath or two. Keeping the feet together with the big toes touching. Start to bend into the knees. So you might just come back into a chair pose. You might be able to squat slightly deeper towards a half squat. You might be able to come down to a full squat. If you're down in your full squat and you're struggling to balance, you could always place the hands behind for support or stick a block under your heels or your bottom. If the heels aren't on the floor, you might find the weights a little more forward like this. You could have a prayer at the chest. And then even if your heels are down, we're going to come into that toe squat. And then just take the hands down and turn the legs towards the right. And we're going to find a twist from here. So take the right elbow over the left knee. You could make a prayer, turning the chest around, looking over the shoulder. If you want to take this further, you could plant the hands back down onto the floor and work towards your side crow. So if you want to work on your side crow, there's a few ways of doing it. You can either line up the left elbow on the left hip and the right elbow just behind the right knee and start bringing the weight on towards those. If you find that you don't have the mobility to get that elbow into the hip, then you might choose a variation when you're just resting the leg against the arm and this elbow isn't touching, so you're more of a diagonal and you're bringing the weight forwards this way. The elbow does not have to touch the hip, by no means in this posture. So whichever variation you're doing, just play with it. If you're more experienced and you've got your side crow, you might work at floating the legs out, taking that flight, the scissor legs. Wherever you are, bringing them back in, back to that squat. I'm just going to swap to the other side, so turning the knees around towards the left this time, taking the left elbow over the right knee, taking that prayer twist. Again, if you want to explore the side crow variations again, taking the hands down to the floor, and again either placing that right elbow into the hip or being more diagonal onto it, so the leg is just touching and the elbow is free. Either variation is just as good. And then again, if you're in your crow, you've got the space, float the legs out. My right leg's not got space, so I'll just do the left this time. And then just releasing off, turning the knees back forwards towards the top end of the mat. And then planting the hands and just taking a step back towards the downward dog. And take this opportunity to pedal the legs out if they're feeling a bit stiff after that. Any movement that feels good here. And then from here, just bring the feet so the big toes are touching. And then lift that right leg up towards the ceiling, finding a three-legged dog. Either staying straight and square, or you could bend the knee, opening the hip. But work on keeping those shoulders level. You might flex the foot of the right leg and change the stretch down the front of the thigh. And then squaring up. And then take a breath in, bringing the knee in towards the chest. And then breathe out, taking it up towards the ceiling. And then bring the knee in towards the right arm. And then up towards the ceiling. I'm going to bring it in towards the right arm again, holding for a few breaths. If you want more, you might straighten the right leg out. And then bending back in, taking it up to the ceiling, and then lowering the right leg down, and we're swapping with the left. We'll repeat on the left side. So left leg up, bending the knee, opening the hip. Flexing into that left foot, checking the shoulders are still square, and then squaring up before bringing the knee in towards the nose, hovering, sending it back up, bringing the knee in towards the top of the left arm, taking it back up. Again, knee in towards top of the left arm, holding or straightening that leg. Slowly taking leg back up, lowering down, and drop the knees down to the floor for a well-deserved child pose. So you can do a wide leg child pose here. You can take the knees about mat wide, drop the bottom back to the heels, lower the forehead down. spend a little longer in child, go ahead. But we're going to lift the head and chest and just move ourselves forwards, coming down onto our front. And just lay the hands down either side of the body. Now you can bring the heels to touch or keep the feet hip distance, whatever feels better for you. And then take a breath in and just lifting the chest up. Keep the hands on the ground, maybe lifting the legs too. Neck nice and long here. Lowering back down. Interlinking the fingers at the base of the spine. Rolling the shoulders back. Maybe lifting the arms up as you lift the chest and the legs. Lowering back down. Taking the hands under the shoulders this time, we're going to find cobra pose. We're going to lead with the heart now, not the neck. So keeping the chin so the face is facing down to the floor. Start to roll the shoulders up, back and down, and peel, leading with the chest. So the head does not have to be thrown back here. Leading, keep peeling up. We want to keep the pelvis on the floor. If I just straighten my arms, my pelvis will start to come up. I want to keep that on the floor, so if you have longer arms, they're going to remain bent. Shine the chest forwards. You could gaze up, but just try not to throw the head back and compromise the neck. Lowering back down. And then pushing into the hands again, we're going to find a 4-point kneeling. And then we're going to take a rounded cat back. Taking the knees together. And this time we're going to take a child pose with the knees together and the arms reaching back, holding on to the heels. Either staying with the child pose, we're going to move into hare pose. So rolling on towards the top of the head, lifting the bottom up, keeping hold of the heels. Lowering the bottom back down, slowly coming back up. We're going to make our way down onto our backs from here. So just swinging the legs around and lowering yourself down. And then having the knees bent here, picking up the right leg and resting the right ankle just behind the left knee, taking a figure of 4. And then you might start to bring that right leg, that right knee towards the chest, the left leg in. You're holding around either the back of the thigh or the front of the shin, flexing into that right foot, keeping the knee safe on the right leg. Those of you that want to explore a little bit deeper into this posture, the right arm that's threaded through, just bend the elbow and have the hand facing up towards your face. Reach the left arm up and around the back of the head, and then just maybe the hands bind so your head just rests gently against your left arm. So there shouldn't be any pressure in the neck here, it should feel quite restorative. Releasing this strange bind if you took it, and then taking the left foot back to the floor. Now we're going to come into a twist here, so either crossing the right leg over the left at the thigh, or if you prefer, just have it uncrossed and the legs stacked. So going to lift the hips, take them over to the right, take the arms to a T or a cactus shape and drop the knees over to the left. Let the head either look up to the ceiling, you might look over the right shoulder. Engaging your abdominals, bringing the knees back centre, taking the right leg off the left, and then straightening the hips up, and then taking the left ankle, placing it behind the right knee, and again bringing that knee into the chest, finding our figure of four or our reclined pigeon variation on the other side, flexing into that left foot. And then again, if you wanted to take this further, the left hand that's threaded through the legs, reaching that palm up towards the face, take the right arm up and behind the head, and maybe you're just sort of close, you might use a strap, or maybe you can just take the bind. One side might be a little more accessible than the other, or both sides might be completely inaccessible. Wherever you are, just take the opportunity to find a bit of a restorative feel. Release the bind if you've had your bind. And then we're going to move into our twist again. So again, either the legs stacked or crossed over at the thigh. Lift the hips up, take them over to the left. Arms to a T or a cactus shape. Knees dropping over to the right, and again either looking over the left shoulder or up towards the ceiling. Engaging into the abdominals, bringing the knees back centre, releasing all of the binds, and just bring one knee into the chest and then the other, separating the knees, shoulder distance, flexing the feet and finding a happy baby, so holding onto the ankles, all the outsides of the feet, having elbows inside the legs. And here you might gently sway from side to side, or you might straighten into one knee, bend it and then straighten into the other, moving alternatively. Just whatever you're doing from here, let go of the feet to the ankles, bring the knees back together. You might wrap the arms around the shins, you might lift the nose up towards the knees, and then releasing off, releasing out, making your body long, taking up space, finding your Shavasana. So choose to take Shavasana in the way that's best for you, making yourself comfortable, making sure you're nice and warm, letting go of any breathing practice. If you did the Ujjayi breath for this practice, just letting go of that now, allowing the eyes to close, having a few minutes in stillness. into your own space. Starting to bring movement in. And then take a full body stretch. And then choosing a side to roll over to. Just lingering for a breath or two on that side. And then just making your way round slowly to a seated position. And closing our practice, reaching the arms up, touch the palms, bringing the hands down to centre of chest. Thank you for practicing with me, thank you for building heat with me. Namaste. See you next time.